Morning, Walter here. Let me ask you something before I start. When was the last time you counted on someone in your family for something important, and they actually showed up, really showed up? Not, I'm here if you need anything. Not, call me and we'll figure it out. Showed up, was there, with you, at that specific moment when you needed them. Take your time answering. I'm not in a rush. There's something nobody talks about when it comes to getting old. Not the knee pain, not the doctor's appointments, not the memory that starts running a little slower. There's something deeper than all that, and we rarely talk about it because it hurts in a different way. It's the moment you realize, not all at once, slowly, over months, that the people you spent your whole life protecting, raising, providing for, lying awake, worrying about at 2 a.m, they have their own lives. And their lives don't have a whole lot of room for you in them. That's not necessarily their fault. That's just how life works. Kids grow up, they get their own problems, their own kids, their own mortgages. That's what you wanted for them when they were little. That's exactly what you worked your whole life so they could have. But it still hurts when you realize it. And there's a particular way people tend to react to that hurt that makes everything worse. And I did it for a long time before I understood what I was doing. You wait. You wait for the phone call. You wait for the visit. You wait for someone to ask how you're really doing, not the polite version of the question. You wait for someone to notice that you've been too quiet lately, or that you haven't left the house this week, or that you haven't been eating well or sleeping right. And while you wait, the days go by, quiet, all the same, and you get smaller inside them. I know this because I did exactly that for a long time. When Dot died, March of 2021, right after the snow had melted off the yard, I stayed alone in that house in Dayton for 6 months, 6 full months, 49 years married. I slept on the right side of the bed because she always slept on the left, and we never changed that. And suddenly the left side was empty, and it stayed empty every single morning, and I'd lie there looking at it before getting up with this strange feeling that something was wrong that I couldn't fix. Richard called every week. Carol too, sometimes more. I liked those calls, I needed them. But there was something I didn't realize at the time, didn't realize for months, that I was waiting for them to tell me what to do with that silence. Like it was their job to give me a reason to get out of bed in the morning, to get dressed, to eat something that wasn't just toast. That wasn't their job. It never was. I remember one Saturday, must have been late June or early July, when I sat in the same kitchen chair from 6 a.m. until close to noon, just sitting. Wasn't reading, wasn't watching anything, wasn't praying, just sitting. I made 3 cups of coffee that went cold before I finished them because I kept forgetting they were there. I wasn't exactly sad. I was dimmed, like a light that hadn't gone all the way out but was so faint it wasn't lighting anything anymore. Richard called that afternoon, asked how I was doing. I said I was fine. He believed me. Of course he did. Why wouldn't he? Here's the thing, there was no way for him to know I was lying. And I had no way, at the time, to understand that I was waiting for him to read my mind, for him to somehow know, without me saying it, that his father was quietly withering in a kitchen in Ohio, for him to come without being asked, for him to know that I needed him to come. That's not a son's job, it never was. After a few months, Richard started mentioning Cedarbrook, quietly at first, then more often. A mid-sized senior living place here in Ohio, not far from Columbus where he lives. I resisted, held out for maybe 6-7 weeks before I agreed. Not because I thought I didn't need help. I knew I did, but because I was ashamed. Ashamed of not being able to manage on my own. Ashamed of needing a place like that. Ashamed to admit that those 6 months in Dayton had diminished me in a way I didn't know how to undo by myself. I got here with my brown armchair. Dot always hated that chair, thought it was too ugly for the living room. And with the tablet Richard had given me. Room number 14, window that looks out over the garden. And you know what I did when I got here? I kept waiting for visits, kept waiting for calls, kept waiting for Richard to show up on a weekend, for Carol to make it down from Nashville sometime, for the grandkids to send a message every now and then. Kept waiting for someone to rescue me from the silence in the hallway at 3 in the afternoon, when the place goes quiet and you can hear your own thoughts a little too clearly. It took me nearly a year to understand I was waiting for the wrong thing. It's not that family doesn't care. It's that they don't know what you need. And you don't say because you don't want to be a burden. And they don't ask because they figure you're fine, because you said you were fine. And everybody waits for the other one to make the first move, and nobody does. And the months go by and the visits get shorter or less frequent, and the calls get quicker. And it's not because nobody loves you. It's because life has its own momentum. And most people can't slow it down just because you'd need them to slow it down. That's not abandonment. That's just life. And there's a big difference between the two. And understanding that difference takes time. But when you finally get there, something shifts inside you. Richard loves me. Carol loves me. I know that. But love isn't the same as presence. Presence isn't the same as availability. And availability isn't something you can ask of people who have young kids and a mortgage and jobs and their own 2 a.m. worries. So when I say that after 75 you can't count on family anymore, I'm not being bitter. I've been bitter. I've been through that. But that's not what I'm saying now. I'm saying something simpler. If you build your emotional stability on the expectation that your kids will show up when you need them, you're building on sand. Not because they're bad people, but because life is unpredictable and they've got their own storms to deal with. And when that expectation doesn't come through, and sometimes it doesn't, what's left is resentment. Resentment toward people you love. And that's a terrible thing to carry. It makes you small. It makes you bitter. And I don't want that for you because I know what it feels like from the inside. The most important thing you can do at this stage of life is stop waiting and start building. Let me explain what I mean by that. The first thing, and I'd say this to anyone, doesn't matter where you are, is to have at least one person outside your family who notices when you're missing. I'm not talking about deep friendship. I'm not talking about someone who knows your whole history, your fears, your regrets. I'm talking about someone who has a pattern with you, who expects you to show up at a certain time in a certain place, and who notices when you didn't. Family loves you from a distance. This person sees you up close. Those are different things. Both matter, but they're different. There's a man here at Cedarbrook, Harold. We play chess every Tuesday morning. We're both terrible at chess. That's important to establish. It's been 8-9 months now. I don't know a whole lot about his life. He doesn't know a whole lot about mine. But if I miss a Tuesday without saying anything, he knocks on my door before noon. Not because we're close friends, because it's Tuesday, it's chess, and I didn't show up. That has a value that's hard to put into words. It means there's someone who notices my absence, that my presence makes a difference in someone else's day. That's a basic human need, to be noticed. And when you rely too heavily on family to meet it, you're too vulnerable. If you don't have a Harold, you're going to have to make one. Maybe at church, maybe a neighbor you've never really talked to, but could start talking to. Maybe somewhere like this if you're in a place like this. Doesn't have to happen right away. Can be slow. But it has to be regular. Regularity is what creates the pattern. The pattern is what creates the presence. The second thing is harder to talk about because it touches on something about pride that most men my generation carry around with them. But I'm going to say it anyway. You need to decide what you still want to learn. I'm not talking about the self-help kind of optimism. I'm not telling you to learn to play guitar or take up yoga if you don't want to. I'm talking about something specific that I've watched here and watched in myself. When the mind stops asking new questions, it starts closing up. And a closed up mind in a body that's also slowing down is a hard combination. You start getting stuck in your own thoughts. Same worries, same regrets, same stories running on a loop. And then the isolation isn't just physical, it's internal. I started watching videos about electrical work here on the tablet, not because I was going to work again, not because there was any practical use for it, but because I spent 31 years as an electrical maintenance technician at a plant in Dayton. And I like seeing how things have changed, what stayed the same, what got better, what got worse. It's a conversation I have with myself. It's a door that stays open. Could be history, could be cooking, could be reading about a place you've never been and probably won't go. Could be keeping up with a field you knew well when you were working and seeing what's changed. Doesn't need an external purpose, doesn't need to be useful, doesn't need a result, just needs one new question every week. One new question every week. Simple pattern works. The third thing is about the body, and I know you've heard this from your doctor, from your kids, from everyone, but let me say it the way I see it, which is a little different. Movement isn't about health in the way people usually use that word. I'm not talking about living more years or avoiding disease. I'm talking about something more immediate. Movement is the one thing you still have complete control over. Family you don't control. When they come, how long they stay, whether they come at all. That's not yours. Deep health, what's happening inside, what the tests show. That's not fully yours either, but you can get up tomorrow morning and walk to the end of the hall and come back. That's yours, completely yours. And when everything else feels uncertain or out of reach, having one thing that's completely yours carries a psychological weight that goes beyond physical health. I go out every morning early, not far, not fast, just to the garden when the weather's decent, to the end of the hallway when it isn't. 15 minutes, sometimes less. But it's the first decision I make in the day, and it's mine. Dot had a way of saying that the day starts with a choice. She was right about a lot of things. The fourth thing is about money, and I know it's uncomfortable to talk about, especially here. But if I don't say it, who will? You need to know where your money is, not your son, not your daughter. You. I'm not saying they're dishonest. Most aren't. I'm not saying you can't ask for help understanding something, but there's a big difference between asking for help understanding and handing over control. When you hand control of your finances over to someone else, even someone you love completely, someone you trust with your life, you also hand over your ability to make decisions about your own life without asking permission. And when a moment comes where you need something, an unexpected expense, a choice about treatment, something you simply want and have every right to want, you find yourself in the position of asking your children for permission to spend your own money. That ages a person from the inside in a way that's hard to describe. I learned that late. Later than I should have. Learned it here, actually. Doesn't have to be complicated. Doesn't have to be elaborate. Just has to be yours. You need to know what you have, where it is, and what's happening with it. That's the minimum. And the fifth thing, the one that cost me the most time to understand, the one I still practice every day, the one I'd say first if I had to pick just one, is this. You need to have a way to say how you're really doing. Not, I'm fine. Not, I'm a little tired. Really doing. What's weighing on you? What you've been avoiding thinking about? What you feel in the quiet when you've been alone too long? I know men my generation weren't raised to do this. I know it feels like weakness, like excess, like something you don't need. But let me tell you what happens when you don't. You accumulate. Thought by thought, day by day, you stack up everything that was never said, never processed, never acknowledged. And one day you wake up and you don't know what you're feeling anymore because there's so much piled up you can't sort through it. And then it gets harder. Everything gets harder. Could be writing, could be recording, like I do here. Could be a journal nobody's ever going to read. Could be talking to someone, a priest, a counselor, Harold after a chess game that ran especially long. Doesn't have to be every day, doesn't have to be elaborate, just has to be honest. The trouble with "I'm fine" is it's too easy to say. And when you say it often enough, you start believing it, or you stop noticing when you're not. And then the days blend together, and you wake up one morning unable to remember the last time you felt something real. Joy, connection, anything that wasn't just the hallway and the tablet and the coffee and the window. I went through that. And I only started coming out of it because I started recording these videos, not for anyone to see, not at first, just to hear what I was thinking from the outside with a little distance. And there's a big difference between what you think in your own head and what you can actually say out loud. When you say it, it becomes real, more concrete. And when it's concrete, you can do something with it. You can acknowledge it, and acknowledging it is already something. Let me go over the 5 things again, because I tend to get lost in the middle, and I want to make sure it landed. One person outside your family who notices when you're missing, who has a pattern with you, who expects your presence. One thing you still want to learn, not because it's useful, not because anyone asked you to, but because it keeps a door open in your mind. Move your body every day, even a little, even slowly, because it's the one thing that's completely yours. Know where your money is and what's happening with it. Keep hold of that, and have an honest way of saying how you're really doing, to yourself at least regularly. This isn't a motivation list. It's not a promise that things get easier. It's what I should have started doing 1-2 years before I actually did. It's what I needed to hear that Saturday in June, sitting in the kitchen with 3 cold cups of coffee and no particular reason to get up from the chair. Nobody was going to walk in and hand this to me. I had to go find it. You're going to have to go find it too. And that's a bad piece of news, and a good piece of news at the same time, depending on how you look at it. Bad because it means it's not coming from outside you. Good because it means it's within your reach. I think I talked too much today. The hallway's getting noisy out there. Must be almost lunchtime. Thursday they do chicken stew, which is one of the few decent things they serve here. Anyway, hope some of that helped. I'm rooting for you.